My brother said I was too soft to succeed, so I outsold his company, bought his office space, and left a note on his former desk. I'm a 29-year-old guy, and for most of my life I was compared to my older brother. Daniel, the family's pride and joy, he was the kind of person who walked into a room and made everyone believe he owned it. Loud laugh, perfect hair, sharp suit. He had that salesman confidence that made people listen. I was the opposite. Quieter, more observant. It's the kid who'd rather sketch designs on a napkin than talk about stock prices. Growing up, the pattern never changed. Every time I achieved something, my parents somehow tied it back to Daniel. If I won an art competition, Mom would say, "You should let Daniel sell your drawings. He's good with people." If I aced a presentation, Dad would chuckle, "Guess Daniel's rubbed off on you, huh?" It was never my win, just an echo of his supposed greatness. Daniel learned early how to play that role. He started selling refurbished sneakers in high school and made a few $1,000s. That story became family folklore. Every Thanksgiving, my parents would bring it up like he'd invented Nike. That's the spirit of a true entrepreneur. Dad would beam. Then, with a sigh, he'd turn to me and add, "You're too soft for business, son. You feel too much." And I believed it. For years, I thought empathy was a defect, something to fix, not value. I laughed at my own dreams before anyone else could. Then came the day. Daniel announced he was launching his own company, some flashy import-export business. He threw a party, of course. I congratulated him sincerely, but he smirked and said, "Maybe one day you'll get serious too, little brother. Art doesn't pay bills." That line stuck to me like a stain, quiet but permanent. And at that moment, I decided I'd prove that Hart could build more than his ego ever could. After that night, something in me shifted. I didn't throw a tantrum or make a vow out loud. I just quietly decided I was done being a footnote in Daniel's story. For years, I'd worked in advertising, helping other people sell their dreams while mine collected dust. So one evening, sitting in my cramped apartment, surrounded by coffee cups and unpaid bills, I opened my laptop and registered my own business. A small digital marketing firm built on honesty and storytelling. I didn't have investors or flashy logos, just a vision. I wanted to help small brands tell their truth. Not the manipulative kind of marketing Daniel always bragged about, but campaigns that meant something. The first few weeks were brutal. I'd send out emails for hours and get nothing back but polite rejections. "Looks good, but we're going with a bigger agency." Or worse, silence. When I told my parents, Mom said gently, "Sweetheart, maybe you should get a stable job first." Dad didn't even look up from his paper. "Business isn't for soft hearts," he muttered. And when Daniel found out, he laughed so hard he had to put down his whiskey. "A marketing firm? From your apartment? That's cute, man. Maybe I'll hire you when I need an inspirational quote for my website." His words burned, but strangely they fueled me. I poured every ounce of energy into my work. I watched tutorials, built my website from scratch, and took any client who'd trust me, even if it meant charging next to nothing. Some nights, I fell asleep at my desk with the blue glow of the screen on my face, wondering if I was delusional. But even through exhaustion, there was a flicker of pride. For the first time, I wasn't following Daniel's path. I was carving my own. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling that my family was just waiting for me to fail, and that thought haunted every click, every pitch, every sleepless night. 3 months in, I almost gave up. My savings were dwindling, rent was late, and I'd started living on instant noodles and leftover coffee. But one random Wednesday morning, while I was drafting yet another cold email, my phone buzzed with an unknown number. "Hi, is this Ethan?" A warm voice asked. "I saw one of your sample campaigns on LinkedIn, the one about small businesses surviving during the pandemic." That was real. We need that. Her name was Claire, the marketing director for a mid-sized retail company. I still remember my hands shaking as I scribbled notes, trying to sound confident. That call changed everything. Within a week, I had my first big client and a real contract with actual zeros. When I told my parents, they smiled politely, but didn't seem impressed. Daniel, of course, had to make it about himself. "Oh, Claire's company? "We pitched them 2 years ago," he said, swirling his drink. "They probably went cheap this time." I wanted to be angry, but mostly I felt sad. No matter what I did, I'd never be enough for them unless I became Daniel. So instead of arguing, I just said, "Thanks, man. Hope business is good," and went back to work. For the next few weeks, I poured my soul into that campaign. Every headline, every photo, every story was built around connection, about reminding customers why they mattered. And when it launched, it exploded online. People started sharing it with captions like, "Finally, an ad that feels human." Claire called me a week later. "You didn't just do good work, Ethan, you made people feel something." That one sentence lit a fire inside me that Daniel's mockery could never extinguish. But when he heard about my success, his tone changed. "Don't get cocky, little brother," he said. "One lucky break doesn't make you a businessman." I didn't know it then. But that single jab marked the beginning of a silent war, one that would push both of us to our limits. A few weeks after my campaign went viral, Mom called to invite me to a family dinner. She said it so casually, but I knew what it really meant: a celebration for Daniel's new business milestone. Apparently, his company had just opened another branch, and my parents were so proud of how far he's come. I almost said no, but part of me still craved their validation. Maybe, just maybe, they'd finally see that I was doing something meaningful too. When I arrived, the dining table looked like a magazine spread: candles, polished silverware, expensive wine. Daniel sat at the head of the table, laughing loudly with Dad about some investor deal. The moment I walked in, his eyes flicked over me, scanning my thrift store blazer like a barcode. "Ethan," he boomed, "glad you made it, man. How's your emotional ad company going?" The room erupted in polite chuckles. I forced a smile and took a seat, pretending not to notice Mom's nervous glance. Dinner went as expected. Daniel bragged about revenue numbers and overseas clients, while Dad nodded in approval like he was watching his legacy unfold. Then Mom, bless her heart, tried to include me. "Ethan just had a really successful campaign," she said softly. "Went viral online." Daniel snorted. "Viral? Oh, come on. Everything's viral these days. TikTok dances go viral," he smirked at me. "Tell me, little brother, how much did that emotional masterpiece make you? Enough for dessert?" The laughter that followed didn't sting because it was cruel. It stung because it was expected. That was the moment I realized no amount of success would ever change how they saw me. I put down my fork, looked Daniel straight in the eye, and said quietly, "Maybe you're right. Maybe I'm not built for your kind of business. But one day, I'll build something you'll wish you had." The table fell silent. Daniel just grinned like he thought I was joking. But deep down, something inside me hardened. That night, as I drove home, I decided I was done waiting for approval. The next time they said my name, it would be with respect, not pity. The weeks after that dinner were a blur of anger and focus. Every insult, every snicker from that table replayed in my mind like background noise I couldn't turn off. So I drowned it out with work. I didn't just want to succeed anymore. I wanted to prove them wrong. Then, almost by accident, it happened. One of my clients, a small local bakery, had been struggling to stay open. I shot a short video of the owner talking about her late husband and how he'd built the shop from nothing. No fancy editing, no marketing gimmicks, just her raw and real, holding a rolling pin with tears in her eyes as she said, "This oven kept my marriage alive." Uploaded it on their social page with the caption, "Sometimes success smells like bread and memories." 2 days later, it hit 1 million views. Then 5, then 10. News outlets picked it up, customers lined up outside her store, and the bakery sold out for the first time in years. She called me crying, saying, "You saved us, Ethan. You saved his dream." That moment broke something open in me, a mix of pride, disbelief, and quiet revenge. I had finally found what Daniel never understood. Authenticity sells, because people crave truth. When I posted the campaign results on LinkedIn, my inbox exploded. Major brands wanted to work with me. Marketing forums started calling my approach heart-based branding. I even got invited to speak at a conference, and then came Daniel's text. Heard about your little video? Congrats. Enjoy your 15 minutes. For the first time, I didn't reply. I didn't need to, because deep down, I knew something had shifted for me, for him, for everyone who ever thought kindness couldn't win. But success has a strange way of attracting old ghosts. And mine was about to knock on my door again, wearing Daniel's smug smile. Success came faster than I ever imagined. Within months, I went from freelancing in my apartment to renting a small but bright office downtown. I hired 2 interns, a graphic designer and a copywriter. Every time I walked through that glass door, I felt something I'd never known before, pride without apology. But the more my company grew, the more I started hearing whispers about Daniel's business. Clients leaving. Vendors not getting paid. Rumors of false contracts. At first, I ignored them. I told myself it wasn't my concern. But when one of his ex-employees reached out to me on LinkedIn, asking if I'd take them in, I realized things were worse than I thought. Around that same time, our parents called. Your brother's going through a rough patch, Mom said. You should check on him. I hesitated. You mean the same brother who laughed when I was eating ramen to survive? Ethan, Dad snapped. This isn't the time for ego. Family sticks together. That word family hit like a bruise. It always seemed to mean sacrificing my peace for Daniel's comfort. Still, I agreed to visit him. When I arrived at his office, it felt like a ghost town, empty desks, unopened mail, and the sound of a printer endlessly flashing out of paper. Daniel sat behind his desk, phone in hand, pretending to look busy. Didn't expect to see you here, he said flatly. I heard you're having some trouble, I replied. He chuckled, bitterly. Rumors. I'm restructuring. You wouldn't understand it's business. But I did understand. I saw through the bravado. His empire was cracking, and he was too proud to admit it. As I left his office, something inside me shifted again. I didn't feel revenge. I felt clarity. Daniel built his empire on ego, while I built mine on empathy. And in business, just like in life, the above foundation always decides who survives the storm. Just didn't know yet how close that storm really was, or how violently it would hit. The storm hit 3 weeks later. It was a Monday morning, and my office was buzzing. New clients, new campaigns, a growing team. Then my receptionist knocked, looking nervous. Ethan, your brother's here. Before I could respond, Daniel strode in like he still owned every room he entered. His once perfect suit looked wrinkled, his eyes tired. He didn't even wait for me to stand. So this is it, huh? He said, looking around. Your little feelings factory? I took a slow breath. Good to see you too, Daniel. What brings you here? He threw a folder on my desk. Invoices, contracts, screenshots of client transitions. You're poaching my clients, he snapped. I blinked. What? They came to me. I didn't reach out to anyone. Spare me the moral speech, he spat. You think you're better than me now? You make one sad video about a bakery, and suddenly you're a hero? My team fell silent. Even the air conditioner seemed to hold its breath. Daniel, I said quietly, this isn't a competition. It's always been a competition. He shouted, slamming his hand on my desk. You just never realized you were losing. For a moment, I saw the brother I grew up with, furious, desperate, cornered by his own pride. He wasn't angry because I took something from him. He was angry because I built something he couldn't fake. I didn't steal from you, I said. People left because they wanted honesty. Something you stopped giving a long time ago. He laughed, a hollow, bitter sound. You'll never be a real businessman, Ethan. You're too soft. I smiled slightly. Maybe. But at least I sleep at night. He stared at me for a long second before muttering, You'll regret this. I stormed out. As the door shut, my heart pounded. I should have felt triumphant. But all I felt was dread, because when Daniel's pride was wounded, retaliation always followed, and I was about to learn just how far he'd go to protect his crumbling empire. Daniel's retaliation came quietly, not through shouting or lawsuits, but whispers. Clients I'd never spoken to started backing out of deals. Two potential partnerships suddenly decided to go another direction. Even my landlord mentioned that Daniel had asked about my lease. It didn't take a genius to see what was happening. He was trying to choke me out of business quietly, systematically, just like he'd always controlled the narrative at home. But this time, I wasn't the same kid who stayed silent at the dinner table. I documented everything. Emails, messages, fake rumors. My lawyer friend advised me to stay calm and let his downfall play out. "You don't have to destroy him," she said. "He's doing that all by himself." And she was right. Within months, the stories about Daniel's business started leaking. Unpaid employees, falsified reports, investors pulling out. A whistleblower from inside his company posted a thread online exposing everything. The irony? The same platforms that ignored my early campaigns now couldn't stop talking about his collapse. Mom called in tears. "He's losing everything, Ethan. He might lose the house." I clenched my jaw. "I'm sorry, Mom, but I can't save him. Not this time." Dad was furious. "He's still your brother. How can you just stand by?" "Because," I said quietly, "he never stood by me." The guilt hit harder than I expected. I didn't want revenge anymore, just distance. I'd worked too hard to build something clean to get dragged back into his mess. But the weight of their disappointment hung heavy. Even in Daniel's downfall, I was still somehow the villain. When I saw Daniel's office listed for foreclosure, I stared at the address for a long time. That place had once been his throne, the symbol of everything I was. And yet a small, quiet part of me wondered what it would feel like to walk through those doors again, not as his brother, but as the man he said I'd never become. A few days after I saw the foreclosure notice, I got a call from a commercial real estate agent. Her tone was cheerful, oblivious to the emotional storm behind my silence. "Mr. Carter, a new property just hit the market, downtown, prime location, great layout, fully furnished. The previous owner's company went under, but it's in excellent condition." She read out the address, and my chest tightened. Daniel's office. For a moment, I couldn't even respond. I could see it in my mind, the sleek glass building he once bragged about, the same desk where he laughed at my ambitions. "Would you like to schedule a tour?" she asked. I almost said no. Buying that office felt cruel, petty even. But the longer I sat there in silence, the more I realized it wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about reclamation. That building represented every insult, every moment I was told I wasn't enough. Owning it wasn't vengeance, it was closure. 2 weeks later, I walked through those glass doors again, this time with confidence instead of insecurity. The floors still smelled like cologne and stale arrogance. Desks were empty, screens dark. I ran my hand across the front desk, the same one Daniel once stood behind while he told me I'd never make it. The agent smiled. "It's a great space. You could move your team in by next month." I looked around slowly. "Yeah," I said quietly. "I think it's time someone built something honest here." The papers were signed within a week. I didn't tell my parents. I didn't even tell my team. It was something I needed to do alone for the kid who used to feel invisible in that same building. As stood in the empty lobby after the deal closed, I stared up at the logo still faintly visible on the wall. Danver & Co. The paint was peeling. The empire was gone, and for the first time in my life, I didn't feel small in his shadow. I felt free. Move-in day came quietly without celebration. My team was ecstatic. New space, new energy, new beginnings. But for me, every corner of that office felt haunted. The sound of my footsteps echoed down hallways that once held Daniel's arrogance. It wasn't bitterness I felt. It was something heavier, the weight of everything unspoken between us. While the movers brought in furniture, I wandered toward the corner office's office. The blinds were half broken, sunlight cutting through the dust like faint memories. His old desk was still there, scratched and faded. I ran my hand across it, tracing the grooves where he once slammed his palm during meetings. Declaring himself the future of business. I remembered standing across from that same desk years ago, hearing him say, I'd never make it. And now, here I was, the so-called soft brother, standing in the ruins of his empire. It didn't feel victorious. It felt poetic, so I sat down in his chair, my chair now, and took a deep breath. Then I pulled a notepad from my pocket, wrote a single sentence, placed it right in the center of the desk. You said I was too soft to win. Turns out softness doesn't break. It bends, adapts, and survives. No signature. No gloating. Just truth. Before I left the room, I looked out the same window he once stared through, that view of the city he used to brag about owning a piece of. But now that skyline looked different. It wasn't a symbol of competition anymore. It was a reminder that the world was big enough for both strength and empathy, if only he had learned that. As I closed the door behind me, a strange calm washed over me. I didn't need him to see the note. I didn't even care if he ever did, because for the first time, I wasn't writing for revenge. I was writing my own piece. A few months passed, and life finally found rhythm again. My company flourished in the new space. Projects doubled. Clients praised our integrity, and for once, I didn't flinch when someone called me the boss. But beneath that success, there was a quiet ache I couldn't ignore. Winning didn't feel the way I thought it would. Victory without closure is just silence in a bigger room. One evening, long after everyone had gone home, my phone buzzed with an unknown number. I almost ignored it until I heard the voice. Ethan, it's me. Daniel, his voice was smaller than I remembered, cracked and tired. I'm not calling for money, he said before I could speak. I just wanted to say you were right. About everything. I didn't know what to say. The last time we'd spoken, he'd accused me of stealing his clients. Now he sounded like a man who had finally run out of excuses. I lost the house, he continued. The cars, most of my friends. Turns out, being a shark only works until there's no one left to bite. There was a long pause, the kind that feels like years. I saw your new office, he said quietly. Good for you, man. You deserve it. For a moment, I almost told him about the note, about how I'd stood in that same office, wondering if he'd ever understand what he threw away. But I stopped myself. This wasn't about rubbing salt into wounds. It was about finally letting them heal. Thanks, Daniel, I said. I hope you find something that gives you peace. He laughed weakly. You always were the soft one, huh? Yeah, I said, smiling. Guess that worked out okay. When the call ended, I sat in the dark for a long time, staring at the city lights flickering through the window for the first time in years. I didn't feel like the younger brother. I just felt whole. It's been a year since that call. I still think about it sometimes, not with anger, but with something closer to acceptance. Daniel moved out of the city, started freelancing for small startups. I hear from Mom occasionally that he's doing okay, whatever that means. I haven't seen him since, and honestly, I'm fine with that. Not every story needs reconciliation. Some just need peace. My company has grown more than I ever imagined. We're working with national clients now, hiring people who once thought empathy had no place in business. Sometimes, I catch my younger employees nervously pitching ideas, apologizing for caring too much. I smile and tell them, that's your strength. Don't lose it. A few weeks ago, while cleaning the office, I found Daniel's old chair still tucked in the corner. It creaked when I sat in it. A little broken, a little worn, but still standing. Kind of like me. I leaned back, looked out the same window he once did, and realized something profound. I never needed to destroy him to win. I just needed to stop measuring myself against him. That's the thing about soft people. We bend. We endure. And one day we rise quietly, while everyone's too busy underestimating us. Daniel built walls to protect his pride. I built bridges to connect people. His empire collapsed under its own weight. Mine grew because it carried others with it. If there's one lesson I've learned, it's this: success isn't about who shouts the loudest. It's about who listens, who learns, and who refuses to harden their heart just to survive. So now, when I walk through those glass doors every morning, I don't think about Daniel anymore. I think about the kid who once believed empathy was weakness, and how that same kid built everything Daniel said he couldn't. I didn't destroy my brother's empire. He did. I just built mine differently.